We're on.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roy. It's Val.
Val with my cute hat.
Val
on.
with the cute cowboy, or
my cute cowboy hat.
Snowman hat. And I don't know. I don't have a cute hat to wear, so
No,
we're feeling pretty festive today, right? So,
yeah, we had a Christmas party.
Yeah, we had our Delphi Christmas party earlier, and we both wanted to take a nap after eating all that food. But here we are. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about silhouette mosaics, is what we call them. Sort of the thinking is, let's say you got a last minute gift and you don't have a whole lot of time. We were really running out of time, but the concept is that you do a mosaic where you don't have to do the entire surface. So you can see here on the daisy that just the daisy's done, the board is in, or if you look at these really nice birds, right? I got a cardinal and a blue jay there. The snowman, the corn. So usually what we do, we start with a piece of wood. Around here, we're getting this wood from some of the glass crates that come in, and so we're kind of repurposing the wood, which would be another nice thing to do. And then we just paint it white beforehand. So we start with a primer just to give us a nice base to work from.
And this one you added a little color.
Yeah, I did add a little color to the snowman because otherwise it was.
And you could do some more detail with the painting of your board first, and then like this, add color or. Not just stark white all the time.
Yeah, you don't have to leave it all just white. I do
like the white too.
We purposely left on the painter's tape. I'm going to talk about the process here in a second, but you can see that the painter tape is just a way to try to keep the board white while you're grouting it. So as you pull it off, it's kind of doing the reveal, I guess. And
What?
I probably just got cut again. So
oh my gosh, let me do it.
One of the things about doing this particular type of mosaic, especially, the sort of the technique we're using where we're just nipping glass and then gluing it down.
It's sharp.
There's lots of sharp edges, and I've probably, hit it now a couple times. So, so if you see little red dots on something, that's me contributing to the project.
You've already grouted this.
Yeah, but that one's already been grouted. I just want to show you.
And the tape was to protect the white from getting the dark grout on it. Yep. So that's all he was doing, peeling off the. Yeah. So I think they probably get it. I probably don't have to.
I think they get it, but if you want to just peel it, if you got nothing else.
Should I peel? Sure.
If you have nothing else to do, you can just.
I really don't have anything else to do because you kind of are doing it all. I'm not the mosaic person here. I'm happy to participate, but I don't really do this. Hardly never.
Yeah, a lot of these were done actually by staff. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, these two here were done by Kaylee and her husband. So.
True. Cute. They're cute too.
They're real cute.
Yeah, and that to me is more of like the silhouette look when it's grouted black like that.
Kind of all the way around it. Yeah. The other thing I like too is that if you've done mosaics before, sometimes it can be intimidating or maybe daunting almost when you look at that whole surface and you're like, oh, I got to cover it all. Or you start cutting pieces to fit in areas. That can be kind of time consuming and kind of nitpicky.
Tedious is what I think.
Tedious
is the word I would use.
Yeah. Good choice.
Thank you.
And but doing this is all you really have to do is worry about the main subject, and you can just leave the background. And as we've talked about before, if you want, you can paint the background. You can do something else to it. We kind of like these kind of stark-looking white backgrounds for some reason. But let me just show you quickly how we did this. So I can tell you a lot of the designs came from, some of them were just clip art that we then transferred onto the board by using graphite paper or carbon paper, and then just transferred it onto the board. The thinking was that that we would pick something sort of simple. A lot of times we kind of do these ones. Well, I guess a lot of these aren't. But so it doesn't always have to be the full image. You can see the tree that we're kind of working on here. I know. So Daisy that works here, you've probably seen Daisy before, and I talk about her a bunch because she's my right-hand person. And so she's working on this mosaic, and was kind enough to let me use it as a demonstration piece today. So thank you, Daisy. And but you can see that it's not the whole tree, right? It's just kind of part of the tree, which kind of I think is kind of a nice design approach to that. So how we've been doing this is just working with nippers. So if you're familiar with this tool before, mosaic nippers or glass nippers they're called. Go by a couple names. They work pretty simple. Squeeze the handle and the two wheels come together. And then we have these made by Diamond Tech. We have another pair made by Bowl. The Silver Snit is what these are called. They're a little more expensive. So if you have a mosaic artist out there that you need to purchase a gift for, this is like the Mercedes-Benz of glass nippers is what I call them. So a little more expensive, but overall, I mean, they're both great tools. what I tell people is a lot has to do with how much you're going to use them, right? I mean, if you're making mosaics every single day, you'll appreciate this lighter pair and with smaller handles, just a little easier to kind of squeeze. But so these do the job, great. So I'm going to show you how this works. A lot of times we like to start with strips. It just gives us kind of a uniform piece to work with. A lot of times just because it's also smaller, easier to handle. And you'll see I'm going to cut inside this, don't look at that, inside this bag, right? So if we cut inside the bag,
they don't fly everywhere.
Yeah, they don't fly everywhere, right? And
because they will fly everywhere if you're not.
And you can see I'm really just cutting and making these little kind of little pieces like this that I'm using for the, well, Daisy's actually using for the tree. What's nice is I can come in, if I don't like the shape of that one, come back in, you know, cut it down, make it a little bit smaller, make it something, again, a little works better for what I'm trying to do.
Show the cut like a square and then because I mean you can't be real controlled with these nippers, but you can be more controlled, I think, than people think.
Yep.
Especially if you start with a strip.
If you want to start with a strip, and you can come in. I cut something that kind of almost looks like a square, a little bigger, but then you can come in, cut that from corner to corner. You can make a couple of things that look like triangles, right? I can take one of those triangles, cut that in back, cut that in half, and then make even smaller triangles. So, just depending on what you're doing, the tool is really pretty versatile. Like you said, I mean, they're not exact, perfect shapes, but for doing mosaics, I don't think that's important. I know sometimes people get hung up on the shapes a lot of times when really, again, if you look at what we're doing, we're filling in area or space and then going to grout it afterwards, right? Good. So that's how the tool works. So, as I mentioned earlier, Daisy made this piece, so she cut and glued a bunch on there. I have some that I'm going to show you how the gluing process is if you want to see what that's like. I just realized I forgot something.
What?
A brush. I was going to grab a brush, but that's all right.
What kind of brush?
Oh, any kind
Everybody,
of
what we're working with today?
Yeah, you want
lots of brushes over here.
Yeah, any of them is fine. Thanks.
Okay.
So Roy is using Well Bond for this project today.
Yep, using a Well Bond. So if you're not familiar with Well Bond, it's a great adhesive for doing mosaics, and for a variety of reasons. One is probably one of the main reasons it's non-toxic, so it doesn't really have any smell to it. So if you're working in an enclosed room, it's kind of nice to work with this. It cleans up with water if you catch it before it dries. It's actually the adhesive I use all the time when I'm working with kids and doing mosaic projects with them, because you don't have to worry about them, eating it, I guess, or getting it on their clothes or whatever, because it washes out pretty well. Works real well on wood type surfaces, even these ones that are painted. The only slight negative to it might be the drying time. It's going to take a little bit longer to dry. I mean, it's not an immediate drying kind of a thing. So typically what we would do is we would glue this first and then grout the next day. So I'm just going to glue a couple pieces on so you guys can see what the process is like. And then, but I do have some areas I am going to grout for you guys in a little while so you can see what the grouting is like. So you can see there. No, so there's a couple ways of doing this. One way of doing this is I'm going to just use this as a palette real quick. Sometimes I'll squirt some glue out in an area like this, and then you could take a brush, right, and pick up some glue, and then you could glue an area, put some glue down in an area, and then come in with and then start putting pieces in there. However, looking for a little skinny one to fit in there. So the way I always do it is you can see how that piece doesn't really quite fit, right? So I just remember where I want to cut it. Now I've got, the perfect place to fit that.
Blood on.
I know. Right, so you can see how that's going, right? And then just kind of working along that way. It's a quicker way of working is putting the glue down first.
I think, personally, I think that's kind of the way to go. Otherwise, what are you saying? The other way is like to glue each individual piece, put glue on it.
Yeah, that's the other way.
And you always
right?
get glue on your fingers.
Yeah, so you could do this, right? So I could just come in, put a little glue behind each piece. I tell people a lot of times for me, it depends on how nitpicky the design part is. If I'm trying to be real careful where I place things and I glue them one at a time, if it's an area where I'm just filling in, it's much quicker, just to, like I said, put down some glue, put that in.
Yeah, and just work in a little space, and then so you're not.
And just kind of move along. Like normally You wouldn't put a bunch of glue down all at once because you don't want the glue to start drying before you've had a chance to really start gluing, putting the pieces down in there. So,
speaking of drying, that's the other benefit of Well Bond. It dries clear.
Yeah, it does. Oh, that's a good point, Kaylee, because if you notice it's white, right? So kind of like Elmer's glue does the same thing, this one will dry clear. So you might want to be careful. We're actually using, I don't know how well you can see it, but the glass is slightly transparent. So, and because of that, if you glue down over a pencil line, when the glue dries, you'll see your pencil line. You won't notice it at first because the glue is white, but again, when the glue dries, it'll be clear, and then you're going to see any kind of line that you've drawn on. So if you're using transparent glass. So you just have to be careful about that. Just don't glue over a pencil line, right? Let the pencil line be where the grout's going to go, and then you won't even notice it. Questions about that? That's nothing rocket science, right? That's one of the things I like about mosaics is it's pretty simple. It's really, for the most part, pretty hard to mess up, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
I think for myself, I know that I was kind of kidding. I have done some things in mosaics, but I do think it's one of those things where you get a little bit, you just are a little bit too careful and too strategic when you start out. But once you get yourself going, it does go much easier, and then you realize you don't have to have these, exact amount of space around each piece. And so it can be a little bit liberating too, just to kind of start putting stuff down and let it sort of speak.
Yeah, I would agree with that, right?
I think
one of the reasons why I like mosaics, for me, I find it to be a little more, like Val was kind of hinting at, it's not so stressful because it's
much more forgiving.
Yeah, it's a lot more forgiving, and trust me, at the end, it's always going to look good. Once you grout it, it really does a lot to tie the image together and really pull everything together. So there's that. So that part, we let that dry a little bit. I am going to grout some of that here in just a minute. So again, Well Bond, right, was the adhesive that we were using for that particular purpose. Now,
is there another adhesive that would work?
There's probably a variety of them.
So what would you use if you wanted it to set up more quickly? So like for some reason, if you were wanting to do a vertical, something that gravity was going to slip.
Sometimes we use things like what's called a construction adhesive, like Liquid Nails, if you've heard that brand before.
Oh, really?
So they have two advantages to them. One is they are thicker. If you'll notice that the Well Bond tends to be a little thinner. And so as Val's hinting around, like if this was an actual, oh gosh, I just knocked all that glass all over the place. If this was like a wooden post you were doing, or let's say you're doing this right on a wall somewhere, the Well Bond, that's another thing, a slight negative to the Well Bond is it's a little thin, so it will, it'll want to have a tendency to want to slide a little bit. So that's where, again, like something like Liquid Nails, like we call it a construction adhesive. There's other brands, right? And they just hold better, especially on a vertical surface. They tend to dry a little bit quicker. Again, normally, though, we still always recommend waiting at least overnight before you grout. I always tell people, last thing you want to do is have pieces falling off while you're trying to grout. So just, let the glue dry. It'll just be much better in the long run. So,
okay.
Yeah, good questions. And if you guys got questions out there, feel free to, make a comment in the video section below, or you can always send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. We have an email. It's facebook@delphiglass.com. You can call and ask for Val.
It's getting
The
old.
non-mosaic. Is that getting old? Not to me, it isn't. But,
I know. Okay, good.
So that's it, right? So we would just keep.
So you already grouted that?
I grouted this one earlier. Yeah. The only reason why is because I want to show you how to clean the grout off, and the grout needs to sit for at least about a half an hour. So I did it. Oh, it's almost about a half an hour ago. I did that one just before we got started, just to give it a chance to dry, because it's easier to clean off if you can catch the grout at sort of the right amount of dryness, which I know is not a word.
So do you want to wait just a couple more minutes and talk about how to mix the grout?
Yep, I'm going to mix the grout right now.
Oh, you're going to do it right now?
I'm going to mix grout. Yeah,
good.
Right now.
Right now.
Does that sound good?
I think you should mix it right now.
Right now. So we have some grout in here. So there's something that Delphi sells here. These 2-pound containers from Jennifer's Mosaics. And I'll tell you, it's a really nice quality grout. So sometimes, we call it Jennifer's Mosaics is the name on there. And sometimes people think it's a crafty kind of a product, but it really, as a grout, it's like rated for use in swimming pools. I mean, so it's pretty durable grout. So it's really, really nice. So that's sort of my point. You're getting a really durable grout in here. What's nice too is it's just a couple of pounds. So, you know, if you're not doing a whole wall or something, it's kind of nice just to deal with a small amount. Now, normally I mix it like in a plastic container or something, which I don't have here. So I just grabbed a coffee cup because I'm just mixing up a really tiny bit, you can imagine, for this. The other thing is the recommendation usually is that we would wear some kind of gloves. These are nitrile gloves or latex gloves. And you should wear some kind of a dust mask while you're mixing it. You don't really want to breathe in the powder. Now, again, I'm mixing up such a tiny amount that it's really not going to generate any sort of dust. So,
so you're not going to wear your mask.
So I'm going to probably not wear my mask. But
all right.
I mean, you can wear it if you want to wear it.
I'm just going to go like this.
Okay, don't breathe, everybody in the room while I mix it. But seriously, though, people. So, I mean, if I was mixing up a lot, if I was mixing the 2 pounds at one time, that does generate some dust, right? Because you're stirring, you're doing stuff. Again, this is going to be pretty.
It's going to be very minimal.
Minimal.
Yeah.
So, I have some grout in this bag, but I don't know why it's in this huge bag, but it is. So, it normally doesn't come in this bag, this big of a bag. What I did was, I mixed it. So this is actually what's in here was I mixed the grout a specific color. So we sell, white, black, and gray grout. And sometimes I thought the black was a little too harsh. So this is a mix of some gray and some black. So that's what I have in here, only because I was custom making my own grout. And I think we talked about maybe coloring the grout, right?
Right.
Isn't that what we talked about earlier?
You do have options to color it. We sell colorants.
We sell colorants, yeah.
Yeah.
Which are great for this.
So if you're going to color the grout, you should buy white. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I would do. Well, I've actually colored the gray grout before with a blue, and you get a really nice kind of a steel blue kind of a color. So I guess, but you're right. I mean, if you want more of the pure color, then you should always start with white as your base.
And probably if you started with black as your base, that would probably be a waste
I would
of
think
time.
that. Yeah, and money, right? So that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just put a little bit in there. You can see I'm going to add some water. Normally, what I just do is I pour it. If you're a recipe person on the container, it tells you how to mix up the full 2 pounds. But the problem is you might not want 2 pounds, right? Which you can see I'm mixing up like a tablespoonful. So I just add some water. What I really like using is when I'm mixing a tiny bit is a spray bottle because I can really control the amount of water. I know sometimes when you're trying to pour a container of water in, sometimes it's it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But gosh, that
Aaron
is
is
nasty.
asking, so you can mix different colors of dry grout. Yes.
Yes, you can. And my advice to you is like if you're mixing colors of grout, you should try to do it based on some kind of a formula. So measure it a little bit, right? So if you're putting in like an eighth of one color to something else, that way in case you have to make more grout, you know what the ratio is, and you can to match it. It'll make it a lot easier. So like I wrote on the top of this one, anyways. Right, gray to black, right? I don't know why I did 2 parts to 4 parts because I could have just done 1 part to 2 parts, but whatever. Yeah, I'm not a math guy, right? So it was. So anyways, I'm gonna add some water to this. A lot of times, this is I can definitely control the amount of water. So what I come and do is do this. It probably doesn't take as much water as you think. That's usually the mistake most people make is that they mix it too
wet.
Too wet.
So
That's great tip. Thank you.
What is the consistency we're looking for?
Yeah, so I always say you want it to be spreadable. So think of like creamy peanut butter, cake frosting, that sort of a mixture.
Oh.
So I'll show you. I have a couple of other. I don't know how well you can see in there. I know I'm trying to show in there. It's kind of hard when it's all dark. But do you see it? Do you see it sticking to the tool? So I have a couple simple rules. One is it should stick to the tool. So if it's too wet, it won't stick, right? And if it's too dry, it won't stick either. So when you get it just right, and if you shake it a couple times, you see where it pops off. That tells me it's a good consistency. If I would have, shaken it one time and it falls off, it's probably too wet, right? Or if you have to shake it 20 times, it's probably a little too wet, right? And so again, the nice thing about a spray bottle is you can just add a tiny bit of water because most people, like as I was mentioning earlier, they mix the grout too
wet.
Too wet. Yeah. I just realized I forgot to do something that was what I really need to do. So.
And what was that?
Mask off the areas I don't want to get the grout out.
Oh, okay.
So let me show you that real quick. That'll be okay sitting there.
Oh.
We sometimes in the world of mixing grout, they say you let the grout slake is the term. And all that really means is that the grout is absorbing the water, and it's a chemical reaction, so we're just letting the chemical reaction get started. Often, I usually just grout right with it, but I forgot to do this real quick, so give me a second to do this.
That's okay. It's good that you show it.
Yeah, so we have to mask off the area, at least a line along here where because I don't want the grout to get over here. Now, sometimes it's,
a little tricky.
It's real tricky when you're trying to put it on there. So this is how I end up usually doing it. I just go ahead and put it on there. Oh. Then I come back with an X-Acto knife and cut around everything, right? I can feel where stuff is at. I know, isn't it? I think I didn't always do this. I think I've learned this later. And I just kind of cut around all the pieces. I can feel them with my fingers where they are here.
But another good reason then to make sure you give enough time to get your glue to dry, because otherwise you'll be popping those off with that thing.
Yeah, exactly, right? So then we just come in here, right? Peel that off. Sometimes you have to come in and be a little more creative with the cutting. Did I miss a spot here? Yeah. No, this is always the best part. This is riveting video, right? Isn't it always? It's kind of reminds you of like a
fixing a
stained
broken
glass
piece.
repair or something. Inside joke for anybody that wants to
check that one out.
Check that one out. Check out our old video. Anyway, so you get kind of an idea, right? So when you come in, I can set that down. This one, for some reason, I can cut that one. I can tell you that's a whole lot easier doing that than trying to cut little pieces of tape and have them fit into all of these really intricate little spots, right? So, and then really, if depending on how messy you are or not, you might want to just put more out even here, right? Just to make sure. A lot of times I just cover the whole board, but I'm just going to mess around right over here. So, give me a second to do that. I'm going to have this.
So, am I right in assuming that you're doing this so you're not really going to have a very defined outline? Like Kaylee's are.
Mine are pretty defined.
Yeah, well, you can approach it actually either way, right?
Right.
I mean,
that's what I thought.
I could come back in. So the advantage now is that once I've cut out the shape, I can see where all the glass is at. And as Val's kind of pointing out, I mean, I could come back in here and even get a little more intricate with the cutting and purposely leave a little bit wider gap so that I have a grout line there. But I don't always do that. I guess it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But right.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes you maybe don't want that thick black line around, but then sometimes like Kaylee's look really nice with it.
Yep,
around it.
So you can see here, like so.
Not very thick either.
Yeah, the flower's not either. So if you see this one, like I just came in there and just like I said, I just cut it a little wider there, so I got a little bit more of a grout line. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what you can do. And so I've got that in there. I've got my grout all mixed up. You might notice that I'm using this is just like a spatula or a mixing tool, right? I use it for mixing, and I'm going to use it for applying at the same time. Oh, the other thing I did here, maybe I did without telling you what I was doing, was I cover the outside edge too, right? So
yeah, because it could fall off the side.
And then we're going to come in here. So I'm doing two things with this tool. One is forcing grout into the gaps, right? That's probably the obvious thing I'm doing. And the second thing I'm doing is wiping off excess grout. So we don't need big globs of grout sitting on the surface. That's just going to
be more to clean off.
Yeah, that's it. More to clean off. Right, I can come in there and cram it along that edge. And as I was mentioning before, so there is almost an ideal time to clean off the grout. And that's what I'm aiming for always. So my advice to people is to always, don't grout unless you have the time to clean it off. And because if you let the grout dry too long and stay on here for too long, it's a bear to clean off. So I'm going to show you a technique that is, I think, a little bit easier. So I'm just trying to cram some grout in this outside edge there, whatever. So that's it, right? I come back, make sure it's kind of nice and flush. The other thing you definitely don't want to do is don't do anything to try to speed up the drying time. So don't hit it with a hair dryer or something. All you're going to do is drive the moisture out of the grout, which interferes with how the grout sets up. Weakens the grout. It could crumble and fall out later. So I'm just trying to clean up some of our mess here. right? And then so this leftover grout, I can't save this, right? So this is not something that I can, cover up and try to use later. You just need to throw it away. Don't rinse it down the sink because it will get caught in the trap of your sink. So it's unfortunately not usable. So, and then if you want to reuse your tool, I just get a damp paper towel and wipe it off and clean it. And then use it again, right? So that's always pretty good. Let's see what I got here. Oh yeah. So then let's say I let this sit. Now the length of time depends on a couple of things. One is going to be, temperature, humidity, those kind of things. How you mixed it, right? If you mix it about that consistency I just showed you, it should be about a half an hour. And you can see it drying. Can you see how the grout is drying? So grout always looks lighter in color when it dries. So it's drying on the surface of the glass, which we would expect that because it's, not a lot of grout there. So a couple ways of cleaning it off. Sometimes I just come in with a paper towel and just start removing it. That actually worked pretty good. Mm-hmm. That was not bad. Yeah, that's it. See?
Perfect amount of time.
Yeah, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if Val's making a comment, almost a perfect amount of time. And what we mean by that is a couple things. One is, you see this ground up pieces of dry grout, right? That means it dried at a really nice rate, right? If you're smearing grout all around, it's too wet. And you can see I'm not really smearing grout. And there's not a lot of grout sticking to the paper towel. If you got clumps of grout sticking there, that's probably also too wet. And then that means just, wait another 5 minutes or so and then try it again. But this one, seemed like I got the timing pretty good, I must say. I've done it a couple times. I probably should know what I'm doing. And then that's it. Now, the best thing to do is let that dry totally. And again, we would recommend overnight. That's usually what I do. And then I peel off the painter's tape because then you get a really nice crisp line. Sometimes if you do it now, it might still be a little wet, and you'll pull out a big chunk of grout. It's not the end of the world. You can patch it, right, and redo it. The last thing you're going to have to do, and I noticed this one on Kaylee, so I'm going to use hers real quick, is that there is one more final cleanup. So after we do this, let it dry overnight, and then when you come back, you can see there's just this little bit of hazing on the surface, especially on the larger pieces. You might notice it, and that can clean up just really easy. All you need to do is get, again, just a damp paper towel. I'm just getting a paper towel just a little wet and just come in here and just wipe off those pieces, and you see how easily they clean up. And I think Kaylee can tell you that probably...
can you see, Kaylee? Mm-hmm.
That some of this was on there for a while, right?
It's been on there for a few years. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, right. So that's why, to me, that first cleanup is critical, getting it at the right amount of time. And like I said, earliest you can probably get it at is like a half an hour. The latest might be an hour and a half or so, right? Anything beyond that, and you're going to find it. You'll probably have to go in with something wet, like they do traditional tile when they're cleaning grout from tile. Usually they get a sponge, get it wet, right, and then clean it. If you'll notice here, we're trying to do this without getting anything too wet. I kind of call it the dry technique. So, and then, just come in, and essentially all you're doing here is just buffing it, right? Just kind of buffing off that final little bit of hazy grout that's on there. Knock off all the loose stuff. There you go. Look at that. Those are nice. That's a great job. So.
Good weekend project.
Yeah, right.
Cute.
These are pretty easy. So,
that was good. I don't know. I learned stuff.
Val learned. That's important. That is
I know what Val's doing on her Christmas break.
Right.
Probably not, but. Well, thanks again for joining us. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Or as the new year's approaching, if you guys got ideas for new projects or new ideas or something you'd like to see us do or demonstrate that's glass related, we'd be happy to.
We'll be back the
next
first
year,
the first Wednesday in January.
Maybe
probably
the third.
I was thinking we would do the second
week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Give
that
us some
works.
time to regroup.
Right.
Yeah, we need to recuperate from the holiday party today. And then,
this was very strenuous.
And this was stressful for Val.
We'll rest up, and then we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Second week of January.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
See you guys soon.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.